The Clockwork Mouse. In a quaint little village nestled in a green valley, there was a small toy shop filled with wonders of all shapes and sizes. Among the shelves of wooden trains, spinning tops, and stuffed animals stood a small, forgotten clockwork mouse named Tinker. With his brass body and tiny winding key, Tinker once delighted children by scurrying across the floor, his little wheels whirring and tail bouncing. But years had passed, and Tinker sat collecting dust in the corner of the shop. No one had wound him up in ages. He often gazed out the shop window at the village square, where a magnificent clock tower stood tall. Tinker admired its gleaming face and the deep chimes that marked the passing hours. One day, Tinker overheard the shopkeeper sigh. "What a shame about the clock tower," the old man said. "It hasn't worked in months. No one knows how to fix it." Tinker's gears whirred faintly with excitement. "A broken clock," he thought. "Maybe I can help." That night, as the shop fell silent and moonlight spilled through the window, something extraordinary happened. Tinker's little key began to turn on its own. His wheels clicked into motion, and his brass body hummed with energy. "I'm alive," Tinker squeaked, scurrying across the counter. He had never felt so light and full of purpose. Determined to fix the clock tower, Tinker wriggled through a crack in the shop door and rolled into the moonlit village square. The clock tower loomed above him, its hands frozen at midnight. The tower's base was massive, with a door that creaked open when Tinker pushed it. Inside, the air smelled of old wood and metal, and the only light came from the moon filtering through cracks in the walls. Gears as big as wagon wheels hung motionless, covered in cobwebs. "This is going to take some work," Tinker said, his voice echoing in the stillness. With determination shining in his brass frame, Tinker began to explore the machinery. He noticed rusted gears, tangled chains, and springs that had snapped. Using his tiny size to his advantage, Tinker climbed inside the gears, squeezing into places too small for anyone else. Tinker worked tirelessly. He tightened bolts with his tiny paws, used oil from an old can he found to loosen the rusty parts, and reconnected broken springs. When he couldn't reach something, he rolled across the square to a blacksmith shop and borrowed tools. As the hours passed, Tinker encountered challenges that made him doubt himself. A heavy cog slipped from his grasp, narrowly missing him. A stubborn chain refused to budge, no matter how hard he pulled. "This is harder than I thought," Tinker muttered, his wheels creaking with exhaustion. But he refused to give up. "If I don't fix the clock, who will?" he reminded himself, winding his key for extra energy. By dawn, Tinker was nearly finished. The gears gleamed, the springs were taut, and the chains hung smoothly in place. Only one task remained, setting the clock's giant pendulum back in motion. Tinker climbed to the top of the tower, where the pendulum hung like a golden crescent moon. He pushed with all his might, but it didn't move. Panting, he paused to think. "I need momentum," he said. Tinker wound his key to full capacity and raced down the pendulum's length, building speed. With a final leap, he slammed into the base, and the pendulum swung forward with a satisfying clunk. The entire tower shuddered as the gears began to turn. Bells rang out, their deep chimes echoing across the village. "I did it," Tinker squeaked, his brass frame glowing with pride. The villagers awoke to the sound of the bells and gathered in the square, marveling at the restored clock. Who could have fixed it, they wondered aloud. Hidden in the shadows of the clock tower, Tinker smiled to himself. He didn't need recognition. Knowing he had made a difference was enough. Tinker returned to the toy shop, slipping back through the crack in the door just as the first rays of sunlight spilled inside. The shopkeeper noticed him gleaming in the corner and picked him up. "Well, well," the shopkeeper said, turning Tinker's key. "I'd forgotten how wonderful this little mouse is." Tinker whirred to life, scurrying across the counter and spinning in a happy circle. The shopkeeper laughed. "You've still got it, little one." From that day on, Tinker became the shop's most cherished toy, and though he never revealed his secret adventure, he often gazed at the clock tower through the window, its hands ticking steadily. Tinker had learned that even the smallest, most overlooked things could make a big difference. With hard work and determination, He had brought life back to the heart of the village.